Hey everybody, welcome to Mental Health Matters, our podcast of St. Louis Counseling. Check us out at stlouiscounseling.org. That is Saint spelled out, stlouiscounseling.org. So of course, this podcast is about breaking down stigma, having general and open conversations to make mental health okay about to talk about around the dinner table. So ultimately, we want you to share this podcast. We want you to subscribe to this podcast. And if anything, just come and seek out services as well. But as always, we have intriguing guests, and today is no different. Today we have Nicole Lanahan with Got Your Six Support Dog. We met, several months ago, and we were both on a panel at First United Methodist Church in Manchester, here in St. Louis. And you did such a tremendous job. It was a panel for veterans' mental health. So kudos to the church that was able to put that together. Mm-hmm. But you did such a good job at that. And I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get her on the podcast. This is going to be awesome. She has a dog. She has everything. So this is actually our first video podcast of Mental Health Matters. So yay.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yes. So
and the dog is here too.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. Look at that. So he's ready to roll.
He is. He's ready to give his interview. So if you hear the heavy breathing in the background and you're listening to this, it's not us.
Yeah. That is awesome. So, and probably throughout, we'll maybe even do a little bit of demonstration here and there.
And he just burped in case anybody caught that, but yeah.
Oh, that's just background noise, background noise. So he's excited too.
He is excited. He's very excited to be here.
Wow. So I think what I'd love to start with is maybe you as the founder and executive director of Got Your Six, right? So how did it come about? So who are you,
Yeah. So I started off, it's funny, a million years ago, as going to school to be a social worker. And one of my...
I knew we connected. Okay, good, yeah.
One of my first internships was with DCFS. And I used to come home really just depressed. Like, oh man, and really just drained. And the one thing that really started to pick me up is I rescued this little rescue lab mix, and I started taking her to training. And I noticed that the days that I went to dog training class, my mood was just through the roof. I was just in such a better mood and so happy. And so much to everyone, my parents' dismay, my grandparents' dismay.
You're going to do what?
I left my degree to the wind, and I went and I started dog training and learned. I went to a vocational school and became a dog trainer and started training police and military dogs. So I've been dog training now for over 20 years.
Wow. Now, how long of a program would the vocational training, how long of a program was that?
It was 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, it was a really intensive course where we learned everything from basic obedience to training service dogs to training narcotic dogs, bomb detection dogs, personal protection dogs, and even sports like AKC obedience and agility and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So then that led you. So when did you form Got Your Six?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting story. I started out training mobility service dogs, and as part of my background. And another part of my background too, which kind of led into Got Your Six, is I was training narcotic dogs pre 9/11, and so we had a date set for the military to come out and look at our narcotic dogs and decide which ones they wanted to purchase. And what happened then was 9/11 happened. And so they canceled all of our contracts for our narcotic dogs because they wanted bomb dogs. But at the exact same time, they offered, because a lot of us then were without a job because we had done nothing but train narcotic dogs. So they offered us civilian contract positions over in Afghanistan to train bomb dogs and train military working dogs.
Wow.
And I was really young at the time. I was only 21. And they said, look, you're going to be there for approximately 2 years. You can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. And so it I don't have, I believe if you go into the military, you have this special spirit, you have this warrior spirit. I don't possess that. I am,
Kind of that calling.
right,
Yeah.
right. And it's so my spirit is a helpful spirit, but it's definitely not the warrior spirit. And so I was just terrified of that prospect. I threw it back and forth in my head, and ultimately I turned the job down. But 9/11 had a huge impact on my life. It had a huge impact on the country, and I always felt a little guilty that I didn't do my duty to the country when my country needed me. So when I started to get phone calls from veterans and first responders, probably about 10 years ago, looking for PTSD service dogs, that kind of reminded me, put me back in that position of, you know what, maybe now this is my opportunity to help when I wasn't able to help before.
Exactly. You're serving your country, and that social worker spirit in you too,
Exactly,
right?
yes.
So yeah, I mean, social work side didn't work out, but you're so involved on that side. I mean, that's got to be a big part of what you do as well.
It came full circle. It's funny how it ultimately came full circle, and I'm very spiritual, and I know not everybody is, but if you are spiritual and you've ever tried to tell God, no, I'm not going to do this thing that you want me to do, it ultimately doesn't work out well for you.
There's like a sign given. Yeah.
Because I felt for a long time, I've been pushed down this path my whole life by going into psychology, by going into social work, and then leaving that path to go to the dog path, and then being brought full circle back to helping those who need help. Even though I fought it for the last, we founded Got Your Six Support Dogs in 2015, and I fought it the whole way. I'm not going to do this. I'm perfectly comfortable making a living just doing dog training, and everybody, even my accountant, advised me against
don't do this.
Don't do a nonprofit. Don't do it. It's a headache. It's a hassle. But ultimately, again, I'm spiritual, and I fully believe this is the path God wanted me on. I fought him, and you don't win. You don't win that battle.
It's constant.
Yeah.
Signs everywhere.
Exactly.
Sign, right? Yeah. So, therapy dogs, support dogs, different?
Huge difference.
Okay.
Yes, and support dogs in itself is an umbrella term. So really the two distinct types of dogs are service dogs and therapy dogs. And when we say support dogs as an umbrella term, because we do both.
Okay.
We therapy dogs it could be a dog that you own yourself, and you go and take classes. Like, we offer classes. You get your dog trained, make sure that you get their temperament tested, and now I can go and I can take my dog to the library to let kids read books to them, to assist with their learning. We take them to the juvenile detention center with the teens that are incarcerated. We take them to nursing homes. So therapy dogs are your personal dog that you're using to spread joy and lift the spirits of your community. A service dog is a dog that has been trained to perform a medical task, and it belongs just to its owner. It's had all the specialty training, and it just assists that person with a medical task.
So when you guys are training, you guys have very distinct paths, right? When you're doing the training with the dogs based on what the owner wants.
Exactly. Yeah. So our service dogs, we train them ourselves. They start with us. We train them about 18 months. We get them as puppies, train them for the 18 months, and then we will place them with a veteran or first responder who has PTSD. A therapy dog can, again, belong to anybody, and they just have to go through that temperament screening, that basic obedience. And therapy dogs do not have public access, so they can't just go anywhere. They can go only to the places they're invited. We get invited to nursing homes to visit, great, but you can't just take a therapy dog to Walmart or
Even though a lot of people
do,
nowadays.
yeah. That's the unfortunate
part.
I'm
like, why is there such an influx in all these different therapy dogs? But really, it's just people love their animals and want to bring them with them.
Right. Well, and then you have the third category, the emotional support animal as well. And by definition, emotional support animals do not need training. So they have no training. They do not have public access, but you're still going to be out and about, and you'll see the dog with the vest that says emotional support animal, and it'll probably be behaving very poorly because, again, they don't need special training, but they're not allowed to be out and about. Some airlines get to set their own rules. So some airlines allow them, but a lot of those laws are changing even as we speak.
Wow. So let's just say a guy like me has a golden doodle named Wrigley, and I wanted him to come in. I could come in and have him tested with you guys to see if he'd be a good therapy dog or not.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Not that I have a dog named Wrigley or anything, but so when a dog comes in, what's the kind of the process? How long does that take for like a therapy dog or a service dog? What's the time range?
So service dogs, because they are so highly and we're accredited through the Association of Service Dog Providers for Military Veterans. So our dogs need, in order for us to keep our accreditation, 350 hours of training before we can place them. So and they have these specialized tests that they have to pass too. We have them approximately 18 months. Now, therapy dogs, again, we have them go through 10 weeks of training classes with us, but that's after they've already been through basic obedience, and they can go through our temperament screening test. In addition to that, we have certain tests like the AKC Canine Good Citizen and the AKC Community Canine that we have them pass. So it's a much shorter process, but because they don't need to be medical, they don't need a medical task.
So is there certain breeds that you find are maybe easier to work with or prefer to work with?
Definitely. We've found, and so when we started Got Your Six Support Dogs, my dream, my first plan was to be able to use rescue dogs. That was my goal. I wanted to use rescue dogs to rescue people. But what we found, and I know this as a dog trainer, and I'm not trying to show any kind of breed discrimination, but as a dog trainer, we know that certain dog breeds have certain behavioral traits. And what we were finding when we were rescuing dogs is that we know that approximately 8 to 16 months of age, just like a human teenager, you're going to have a little dog teenager. You're going to, and so you're going to have sexual maturity. And at sexual maturity, what can happen is maybe there's a breed trait buried deep down in that DNA, and it's been latent this whole time, but at sexual maturity, it can pop up. So let's say that maybe I have a border collie mix of some sort, and it's from the time it's a puppy to 8 months, it's a great dog. Now, all of a sudden at 8 months to 16 months, it starts nipping people because it's that border collie herding trait popping up at sexual maturity. And so what we were finding with the rescues, with the mixed breeds, is we would train a dog and we'd invest all this money. It costs us a lot of money for all the training that we put in these dogs. And then we'd invest 8 months of training, and then at 8, 9, 10 months, we'd get a weird behavioral trait that would pop up. And so then we'd have to wash out the dog. So what we found is that we had greater success with breeds that we have a better understanding. We know their behavioral traits right off the bat. So we have greater success with Labradors and Goldens. And we will still rescue Labradors and Goldens, as well as we use breeders that we have researched, and we know that they have health guarantees. We know they're wonderful breeders. But we have now decreased our washout rate by 80%.
Oh my gosh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So just kind of doing that work up front and knowing the breeds and that information.
Exactly.
Kind of like the analytics of dog breeding, like the analytics in baseball, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So let's talk about veterans, right? And mental health. And so a lot of probably the veterans you're working with or the dogs you're working with, a lot of post-traumatic stress.
Right.
So what kinds of things do you try to, I guess, first work with the veteran on, with understanding the dog end of it, and then as well as what does it take to train the dog to recognize some of these symptoms?
Right. And even before I think we touch that, that's almost part two. Part one is kind of, and what the research is being proven now, because I know some people probably even listening to this podcast
hopefully
are really, really skeptical about what dogs even do. And sometimes we'll even, for us, we'll get a lot of applications from veterans, and it's not even that a PTSD service dog was their first choice because they themselves are skeptical. They might be their last choice, but we get a lot that say, I have done everything else. I have done the medication. I have done the therapy. I have done everything that they had me do, and you're my last option because we're not getting any better.
Wow.
And I myself, when it comes to PTSD service dogs, and this always surprises people, I was a huge skeptic. Even as a dog trainer, I thought, all right, everybody, we're taking this a little too far with these psychiatric service dogs. What do they really do? Okay, because I myself train mobility service dogs in the beginning. And so, yeah, I'm training dogs to retrieve items that are dropped for people that have mobility issues. And I'm thinking, okay, we all know that you're going to feel better with your dog, but come on, you just want to take your dog to Walmart with you. What are you doing? And then I started looking at the research, and I started understanding the science behind PTSD. And now we're analyzing our own outcomes from our own program, and we're looking at the research that Purdue just published on service dogs. And oh my gosh, there's no arguing with it. There's no doubt now that service dogs work and they help. But the thing is, and when we're talking to veterans, they only work as part of a massed therapy program. And what I mean by massed is, I mean in conjunction with other therapies.
Okay.
So a service dog alone, and this is really huge for people out there, because we'll see this too. We'll see some veterans who are training their own service dog, and that's great, or other people that are training PTSD service dogs, but they do not work without a therapeutic program backing them up. Because, and one of the ways that I explain this is, when I was working with diabetic seizure alert dogs, we would train the dogs to scent low blood sugar. And you can do that by scent. And it's a really neat process. So what would happen is, if my blood sugar was low, the dog would smell that. Then they would alert to me, and I would go, oh my gosh, my dog just alerted, my blood sugar's low.
Triggers you to know that. Yeah.
Right. But now I have to do something about that. I have to take my insulin. I have to do something.
Intervene.
Right. The dog just saying, hey, your blood sugar's low, is not going to save my life in that moment. What's going to save my life is the insulin. So with our PTSD service dogs, we train them to alert to oncoming anxiety or oncoming outbursts, or any kind of low-level anxiety where you're still in the frontal lobe of your brain, not the hindbrain. And from there, that's not going to help. From there, I have to go, oh, my dog just alerted to my anxiety. Now I need to know what to do about it. Now I need to know, okay, what works for me, because what works for me might not work for you. Maybe I need to go do some mindful meditation. The veterans all roll their eyes when we do that. But we do mindful meditation with the dogs, which is so much more fun.
Interesting.
And maybe I need to do mindful meditation. Maybe I need to go do some box breathing. Maybe I need to go outside and just listen to one of my favorite songs on my iPod. Look how old I am.
Oh, yeah.
iPhone.
Some music, iPhone, yeah.
My iPhone. Maybe I need to go listen to this song on my iPhone that gets me pumped up and gets me back in the right frame of mind before I slip into that hindbrain, the part of my brain that tells me, this is the end of the world, the reaction part of the brain, rather than the frontal logical part. So really the dogs are working to keep you in that frontal logical part of the brain.
Wow. So it's very similar to what we talk about with a lot of times you need some medication.
Yes.
And the medication, for depression just doesn't by itself do anything.
Yes.
You got to have the work that goes into it, the coping skills, the interventions, and things of that nature.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And because again, a dog, we tell people all the time, it has, the success that we see with the dogs, and we've been measuring these outcomes ourselves, because at first we were, and I'll admit, because I was new to the PTSD service dog world when I started this, and we've always been measuring our outcomes, and we did measure that the success rate, the overall lowering of PTSD symptoms with a service dog was not lowering at all when we were just placing dogs. But once we started placing them in conjunction with that therapeutic program and making sure that our applicants were really involved in therapy, really working then that's when our approval rates went through the roof.
So that veteran then the individual has to be willing to do some of the other work. So the dog is kind of, this partner, so to speak, on the journey.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you brought Recon today, right?
I did.
And so he's able to sense different components
Yes.
of PTS, right?
Yes.
Post-traumatic stress disorder. So anxiety, maybe if there's an increase in aggression, things of that nature.
Exactly.
So what's that process, and how do you train the dog to be able to recognize that? So is it, I'm going to guess things, but I'll just let you talk. You're the expert with this, right?
Yeah, so each dog is trained individually to the applicant. We do, when we're training dogs to recognize growing anxiety or even depression or things like that, we teach them generic signs at first, like leg shaking or hand clenching, crying. And then once they get further down their training and we have an idea of who we're going to pair them with, because we always get applicants who ask, can I pick my dog? And we actually pick them based on personality. We have a kind of a system that matches personality, and it's worked time and time again.
Wow.
And from there, we can train more specific. So we have an applicant who maybe clenches his fist. Then we'll train that dog to notice that, or grinds their teeth. We train our dogs to interrupt night terrors. So we have two ways of doing that as well. They can do what we call an aggressive waking up, where the dog actually paws them or licks them or nudges them awake. However, we do have recipients who sometimes wake up violent because they are so lost in that dream or nightmare, so lost in that moment, and they wake up ready to fight. We've had applicants who have woke up from a night terror. One had his hands around his wife's neck and was choking her. Had no idea, but that was how vivid his night terror was. And so if we have an applicant like that, we'll train the dogs to either turn on a sound machine or flip on a light switch from a distance that keeps the dog safe.
Amazing.
And wakes them up at the same time.
So truly tailored to the individual.
Exactly.
And so then, what's the scope of people reaching out to you, veterans? I mean, just not regionally, you have people from kind of all over?
Yes, unfortunately, right now, the VA doesn't cover service dogs for veterans. And I know everybody gets mad at, VA, and they're all angry, but I understand from a financial position, they just don't have the money. So they're fighting it because service dogs are very expensive. It costs us about $20,000 to train and place a service dog, not just because of the service dog, but because we put all the therapy with it. When the veterans come or the first responders, we pay for their hotel, their meals, all the therapy programs that we provide, the therapists, the trauma informed yoga, we do acupuncture, we do art therapy. So we throw all that together, and then we get this huge price tag. So the VA knows that price tag is there, and they don't have the money. So right now they're saying their stance is they cannot pay for PTSD service dogs because there isn't enough evidence. Well, we know that that's not true because the Purdue study and our own studies. But so because of the lack of funding, and a lot of the nonprofits are responsible for it themselves, like we place our dogs at no cost to the recipient. Wow. So in order to do that, we have to raise all the funds ourselves. And because of the high cost, we are only able, this year we're training the biggest class we've ever trained of dogs. We have 10 dogs in training right now, which is huge for us. Yeah. But I can say we have 5 times that in applications. So we have to be very particular in our screenings and make sure that our dogs are going to the applicants that can benefit the most.
So with Recon there, right? So if you were to act a little anxious or something, might he do something?
Yeah. So and I kind of talk about that too. So the big thing with PTSD too, where anybody who suffers from it, and I suffered from it myself. I had a horrendous car accident back in 2003 and became almost agoraphobic. And if anybody doesn't know what that means, it means at my worst, I almost didn't leave the house for a year because I was my panic attacks were so bad. And so what happens with a panic attack is you're sitting here in your frontal lobe where all your logic is. But if something somewhat reminds you of a past trauma, so with a veteran, it could be I'm driving along and I see a piece of a cardboard box on the side of the road. And oh my gosh, who even looks at a cardboard box? But for them, they recognize that as a potential bomb. Now, logically, they know I'm in Missouri. There are no roadside bombs in Missouri. They know that. That's the logical part. But the back part of the brain has made a warning manual from previous experience. And so that warning manual kicks on and says, hey, don't you remember one time when a empty box or a tire on the side of the road was a bomb? And the frontal brain's like, yeah, but we're in Missouri. It's not a big deal. But the back brain goes, yeah, well, do you really want to risk it? Is it worth your life? And then frontal brain goes, you know what? You're right. No, I'm going to let you take over. And so then the back brain says, all right, reaction. We're turning around. Heart rate's up. Adrenaline's up because we got to get out of here. This is a life-threatening situation. Don't worry. I got it. I'm going to save your life. But in the meantime, now I couldn't go to whatever appointment I was going to. Now maybe I can't go to work. I lose my job. I'm going to get a divorce because I can't work, and that lack of the finances is hurt the marriage. I'm angry all the time. I'm not sleeping. So all these things are going to lead to drug abuse, alcohol abuse, and then veterans have an extremely high suicide rate of 22 a day. So what we do with the service dogs is by teaching them to notice the beginnings of anxiety as they occur before the back brain can even kick on, is we hope to keep them in the frontal lobe where logic can overtake reaction. So in this example, and I know it's kind of hard to see, but on the videos we have Recon, and but you'll see him in a second when he reacts. He's just lying on the floor and he looks like he's sleeping, and he's not even facing me. He's facing the wall, like he's not even paying attention. But I can guarantee he's still in tuned to my anxiety levels. And so one of the things that I trained him on when I do demonstrations with my anxiety level, if my anxiety starts to grow, I'm going to take a deep breath. So if I'm hanging out here and I just go, he's on me immediately. And for those that can't see, he immediately jumped on my lap. And so it's really hard to ignore, and you can hear his heavy breathing. It's really hard to ignore a big dog when they get on your lap. So, and if I were to push him away, even and say, no, I don't want you, and I still get upset. No, I don't want you. He's gonna keep. He keeps coming up. He's gonna keep. Oh, he's gonna knock things over. He's going to be. He knocked the microphone over. He's gonna be persistent enough. Like, lady, you need to pay attention to me. So that interrupts my ability to kind of fly back into that back part of the brain, and it kind of keeps me in that frontal part. And not only that, now he's also doing something, especially if I was lower, called compression therapy with that weight that he provides. So for those not familiar, if you know somebody with autism and those weighted blankets, those weighted vests help, the weight of the dog on my lap is actually going to help calm me. And another really cool thing about service dogs too, aside from, so he would alert to me, and then as part of my therapy program, I would have an action plan now. Dog just alerted, so what do? Do I listen to my music? So
you've been
box
triggered
breathing
to do the work now.
Right, now I do what's in my plan. But another really cool thing about dogs, come here, buddy, is even if I just, and this could be part of the action plan too, have him sit up here and I just start petting him, after 30 seconds of just petting him, I'm going to get a serotonin dump and a dopamine release in my brain. So I'm going to get like a Xanax-like effect just from petting him. And the really cool thing about it too is he gets the same effect. So we're both, everybody, when I do this, like a mental health presentation to high schoolers or anybody else, and I talk about this, everybody laughs. But we're going to sit here and just get high. On dopamine. Like I get high on
together,
dog.
Together, you have a partner.
That's right. We have this mutual, so we're both really enjoying this nice little therapeutic moment. So, yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah. So then, He's 3 years old, right?
Yeah, he's going to be 3.
He's going to be 3. So when did he first? How old was he? Was he a pup?
So
When-
we actually got him from a rescue because we still try to rescue as many as we can. We got him from a rescue when he was 9 months because he had pulled all the siding off of his previous owner's house because he was bored and needed a job. So we put him in the program and we did train him for a year, but ultimately he flunked our program for doggy ADD.
So that's a dog that flunked
Yes.
out, and look what he can do, right? Imagine one that passes.
We have really high standards because in
Yeah.
our class right now, we just got done placing a class. And so all we have right now, we just got puppies. So I could have brought a puppy in here and he'd probably be peeing in the studio.
Yeah,
and
Mid-Coast Media would not appreciate that. Yes.
So when we put Recon in the program, he was so great about performing, but he still has that little bit of distractedness. We knew he wouldn't make a good service dog, but he makes a good organization dog. So we have now adopted him as an organization, and when we do presentations, he's the dog we take.
So
Since
he's getting lots of love.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, he's a little bit spoiled.
He's a celebrity.
Yeah. I know, because now he's been on Mental Health Matters,
Yeah.
so he's really going to hit it big now.
He's been on the news several times, and oh yeah, he's getting a big head.
Yeah. So I think it's important for those listening out there to realize, okay, so he recognized these symptoms, right, that he's been trained to recognize, for PTS, anxiety, whatever it may be, and then he brings himself into the situation, which then can trigger you to say, okay, because I think a lot of times people don't realize that they're in this state even,
Right.
you know, and so that big deep breath that you originally took
Right.
was something that person or you, if you're dealing with those symptoms, may not even realize it's starting in you, but that dog recognizes it.
Right. And it's almost magical, and it's one of the things that we always have to talk to spouses and family about too, about understanding that there might be some resentment, because there's already spouses now that recognize when their spouse is getting upset, and they'll say, hey, you need to calm down. But what happens is that will actually cause more anxiety because that person is now feeling defensive or they're feeling weak. And what happens with the dog, it's almost magical, is when the dog says, hey, you're starting to get upset, we can be vulnerable around animals. So then I can allow myself to say, you know what, I am getting upset. You're right. I can't get upset at the dog. He's a dog.
He's a dog.
You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. It's a soft approach into kind of those mental health issues that we all have to address as we go.
Right.
So if people want to get involved with Got Your Six support dogs, do you guys use any volunteers at all on any levels?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Tons. We can always use, we're doing a big gratitude campaign right now, which is a lot of letter writing and things like that. We can always use teenagers who need high school volunteer hours when we have cleaning days and things like that. More volunteers that have more time. We can always use puppy raisers. That's a big thing, or help at fundraisers. We can always use volunteers.
Okay. And then, well, I got another question. I was going to talk more about the organization, but how long a day does, like, these puppies, are they in training? Like, I'm just thinking about, it's got to be, like, a lot.
And when you're training puppies, and it kind of depends on the dog too. Every dog has and it's something we have to notice as a trainer, has a limit. And so, yeah, they'll be in training all day, but they'll have a lot of time off. So for puppies, I have to train them multiple times a day, but for very, very short periods.
Okay.
So with a puppy, 10 minutes here, 10 minutes there, 10 minutes here, but with big breaks in between, because they're essentially toddlers. And so they're really excited to learn, and they learn super fast, but their capacity to go for long periods, they're going to burn out quick. So we have to watch that and keep their sessions short. Now, as our dogs get older, we're going to train them a lot longer, and we have to, especially when we're working on public access. So I have to get a dog used to going to the movies. So we're going to have to go to a movie, and it might be a 2-hour moving, you're going to have to lay down that entire time. So we can do things like that. At the end, we try to get all of our dogs on a flight as well, so they have airline experience. And it might be a 2, 3, 4 hour flight, and they're going to be crammed in that little bitty, if we don't get bulkhead, they're going to be crammed in that little bitty kind of under the seat space sticking out, and they're going to have to get comfortable in that spot for 3, 4 hours. So it really just depends on the dog's age and where they're at with the training.
And then for people that come in to talk about their own pet becoming a therapy dog. So how often would they be, if they entered that program, how often would they have to bring their dog in, or does the dog stay with you guys?
For the therapy?
Yeah.
So they would train them themselves, and we offer classes, and it's a once a week class for 10 weeks. And we offer, so the classes fill up pretty quick, but we have evaluations because before they can even go to the class, we have to do a temperament evaluation, and all of those they can sign up for. We have online, and they can see when the dates for those are.
Okay. And your website?
GotYourSixSupportDogs.org.
And also we learned that it takes a lot of money, right?
Oh my gosh, yes.
to keep this going.
Yeah.
Because it's amazing what you guys are doing, and the intervention that and the way it can help giving back to our country. So if you're interested in donating, how should they go about finding you, or the website? Or
Oh, yes. We happily take donations through our website, but we love, one of the things I love is to come out like today and talk about what we're doing. And so like corporate giving, for example, we're always happy to go to a place of business and give a demonstration and talk about what we do. We have different sponsorship levels. We're getting ready to do a capital campaign so we can finally own our own building. We've always been renting. That's very exciting.
That's cool.
So there's sponsorship levels for that as well. But yeah, we take donations through our website, even through Facebook. But if you want a little more, if you want us to come out, talk to you, you want to come see us, just contact us through the website, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. And and I think the other big takeaway, like you said, even if you're just loving on the dog, petting the dog, the dopamine that it does for you. So even if you're at home right now and you don't have a service dog or a therapy dog, still just pet.
Absolutely.
Right? It does makes a world of difference.
When I talk we come to high schools a lot to do talks on health and mental health. And that's one of the things I tell them. If you're getting stressed, if you notice it, just go snuggle your dog for 30 seconds straight. Put him on your lap. Get that nice dopamine rush, and your dog's going to love it too.
Awesome. Well, Nicole Lanahan, thank you very much for having us, or for being on with us today.
Yeah.
We are excited to hopefully kind of keep this partnership going and keep talking. And I've already got some ideas myself from St. Louis Counseling's perspective. But as always, this has been Mental Health Matters. If you are interested in looking up our services, go to stlouiscounseling.org. That is Saint spelled out, stlouiscounseling.org. Until next time, this is Tom Duff, St. Louis Counseling.
This has been Mental Health Matters with Tom Duff of St. Louis Counseling Services. Check out stlouiscounseling.org for more information.